Hello and welcome to this edition of our participant education session. So I am Brian Williams from Northshire Consulting, and today's a special edition because we have a couple guests with us. So today we're tackling a pretty important topic here, which is keeping yourself and your data and your finances safe online. So looking at the people that are registered, we know we have some working with small businesses, as both of our companies do. We know we have some more on the employer side, and then we know we have some employees. And we're going to talk a lot about that because now, of course, with work-life balance, you've got work-life technology balance too. You're checking work things on your personal devices and on the go and coffee shop and work from home environment. So we've got a lot going on there. So let's get into introducing some of our guests here. Um, so as I said, today's Keeping Yourself Safe Online. So we have Jessica Pileski and Dan Cantaldi, and they are from IT Health Partners. And we're going to talk a lot about, again, like I said, on the individual side and then on the business side. So we can kind of work through that. Thanks to anybody who's watching live. I think that's awesome. I know a lot of you are going to pick this up on the recording, which is fine too. And some of you sent in some questions ahead of time, which we'll try to address as part of our conversation here. So we talked a little bit about at least some of the work-life balance stuff and the devices. So we'll talk about keeping yourself safe, on the road and at home and also in the workplace. Some of the themes that you'll run into, we'll talk about are sometimes you're going to have to trade a little bit of convenience for some security, that extra little measure of getting that text or going into the app for the security for that two-factor authentication. It can feel like a pain, I know, but especially when dealing with your financial accounts, you really want to go that extra step and just trade a little bit of convenience for security. Trust but verify. If you get an email and it looks suspicious, or even if it looks clean and good to go, it doesn't hurt to call. Doesn't hurt to call your bank, your advisor, your IT, your whoever it is, and make sure that the information is correct. A lot of times investing, we talk about the kind of the marginal things we can do, but sometimes in investing, it's just about preventing the big error, starting too late, making a trade that creates a big tax bill. And I think a lot of that holds true here on the technology side as well. You can be perfect 99.9% of the time, but if that 1/10 of a percentage error is a big error, then it's going to be a problem. So who is Northshire Consulting? Quickly, we're a registered investment advisory firm in Connecticut. We work with small businesses and family. I'm focused on technology because I like it. I like to get out and kind of nerd out on some of the programs and stuff that are available to me. But I think that helps some of the efficiency of the practice and dealing with a lot of the participants in the retirement plans that we do. We always approach it from an educational, really try to consult with our customers, not trying to sell any specific product or services. We just feel like an educated client is our best clients. So I'll turn it over to Dan and Jessica, whoever wants to introduce IT Health. And if they need me to click ahead on a slide, I can do that. Just let me know.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian, for hosting this
Sure.
informative session. My name is Dan Cantaldi. I'm one of the founders of IT Health Partners. And I'm joined with Jessica Pileski, who's one of our technical engineers who helps all our customers out there and keeps their operations operationalized. We founded the company in 2020 with two of my founders, Lee Seidman and Chris Phillips. Prior to that, we all worked together at a company called National Physician Services, where we were owned by two physician groups, and we had a third business that offered MSP services, which we are. We're a managed service provider. So we provided IT services to other third-party entities. And in 2020, unfortunately, we had this COVID event, and a lot of businesses decided to shut down their businesses. So our owners decided to shut down our IT company. And unfortunately, that left a lot of these IT clients without a vendor. So they came to us and asked us if we would start a company, and that's how we founded ITHP. What's a little bit different about us is that we have actually worked more on the corporate side. We've actually worked in IT departments, whether it was healthcare, manufacturing, insurance, education, a bunch of different other disciplines. So we have a lot of hands-on experience. The entire team has worked together for the past 15 years. And so one of the things that's different about us is we have a security first approach, and we also treat your business like our own business. So again, we sat in your seat. What we also do is all the technologies that we offer our clients are technology we use ourselves. So we quote unquote drink the Kool-Aid as well. So everything that you would use as a client of ours, we actually use ourselves within our organization as well. Can you turn to the next page?
Yeah, sure.
Thanks. Just a quick slide, who we are. I mean, we're technically a healthcare MSP. That's where we kind of sharpened our teeth. We provide services as far north as St. Albans, Vermont, which is about 10 miles from the Canadian border, as far as east as Martha's Vineyard, Westchester County, New York, down to North Carolina. So our reach is pretty broad. And as we started expanding our business, we started talking to other clients that had similar issues, right? So managing IT and security is very similar regardless of specialties or industries that you're in. So as you can see, we've expanded our business to kind of cover a number of other industries, 10 industries and counting. So we're always open to work with clients that have business and IT challenges. Next slide.
So next slide is one I can kind of throw in here, and this is one of my favorite ones when you're talking about password security. So, any sort of financial accounts that you have, almost all financial services companies now will require multi-factor or two-factor authentication, and that's where you put your username and password, and then they'll either text you a code, email you a code, or sometimes you have an authenticator app on your phone. But password length and strength is really important, even if you do have the multi-factor authentication. So this is just a chart here that just gives different. You can obviously do uppercase and lowercase and special characters and do all sorts of length. So passwords are something that, and I'm sure they'll expand on this, but obviously something you want to make sure you're changing up, and most of the financial services providers require you to do that. We use a lot of passphrases. So instead of just doing, Yankees 2010 or something like that, you could do I love the Yankees, to just something like that will kind of extend it out and make it a little bit longer. As you see from the charts, once you get up to, 10 characters or more, it really makes it a lot tougher to crack. So you want to look at the password length that's available to the system, whatever they can take. Sometimes they don't like special characters or repeating characters or things like that, but you want to take advantage of that, the maximum security that's available through the system. Well, Dan, Jessica, what are your thoughts on some of the password managers and some of the things? I know there's some stuff available in the browser. There's some third-party stuff. What are your thoughts on those?
Well, for our organization, we've used several different products. LastPass is like one of the products that are out there. They had unfortunately a breach about a year or so ago, so we decided to pivot to a different product. So we're using a product called Bitwarden, BIT Warden, and we utilize that for our own passwords. We also utilize that for all of our clients. We also have the ability to kind of rotate administrative passwords, so we're not always using the exact same password. So again, what Brian was talking about is something that we do ourselves. We don't preach something that we don't follow ourselves. It has the ability to separate, like say, your personal accounts. I use it not just for my business, but also use it for my own personal banking. You can separate information into separate folders. To Brian's point, it has a browser attachment. So I use Google Chrome. I just log into a website. I'm able to just click on the upper right-hand corner, adds my user ID and password, and away I go. And at times, as you mentioned, we do MFA, two-factor authentication as well, and pretty much anything, not just for our business, but also for our personal banking, even within the household. So when you're sharing passwords, there's ways to kind of get your spouse to be involved in that process. So rather than doing MFA, you can use maybe a cell phone. So we use Bank of America. It can send me a authorization code to my cell phone. When my wife logs on, it sends her an authorization as well. So I think it's important to utilize that, not just in your business, but also in your personal life as well.
Yeah, that's a good point. That comes up a lot when we're talking about estate planning, believe it or not, because everybody now has these digital assets, whether it's a Facebook profile or, music that they've downloaded, photos, that kind of stuff. And the keys to all of that is obviously going to be your password. So when you're gone, how is that handled? And that obviously factors too on the business side. If somebody leaves the company, or if somebody passes away, or is disabled, you have to be able to have a backup plan to help those people. If they're the administrator for the whole company, on the password side, you have to have some sort of backup, whether it's within the system or outside the system. Do you actually recommend, like keeping a notebook of passwords, or how would you handle that within a company to have kind of a backup on that?
I would probably, if you have, like, we use Teams, right? So in Teams, you can actually download that. You can download stuff to OneDrive. If you have a Google Drive as well, you can do that as well. I would back that up periodically. To your point, you always need to have a plan B, because although we're dependent on third-party utilities and technology, sometimes it's not going to work, right? So you need to have a plan B if something's not functioning. Or, like, for instance, my Bitwarden didn't upgrade and I was having problems logging into it. So I had to put in a ticket. I had to uninstall it, install it back on. I was able to ingest all my passwords again in the way I was working. But as an inconvenience it's for other people to their business, it was inconvenient to me. So I also understand that, having that plan B, being able to have some notes someplace else, but making sure that it's secure. You don't just want to put it in, let's say, your college email account or something of that nature. Have a business class email that's getting backed up, that's also password protected as well.
Yeah, when we were doing a little prep for this meeting, we were talking about some of the horror stories and some of the things that we've both seen, in terms of data security and money movements and all that kind of stuff. So we'll share a couple of those. To the point about the email, just even as a professional, being, Joe's Sweatshirts at gmail.com versus, sales at joesweatshirts.com makes such a big difference. Just that the professionalism that comes across, but also once you can layer on some of the encryption or some of the other data security and backup features there, it's definitely worth doing, getting a professional email address. One of the things that's a big deal in our world is wires. Wires are a little bit different than, you might have heard the phrase ACH. ACH is generally a little bit slower. And if there's an issue with, that's usually when they do your bank account routing number, and it might take a day or two to move. But wires are generally same day, and they're very difficult, if not impossible, to get back. So you see wires a lot in real estate transactions, closings. You see those a lot in, business transactions. So on the first slide, we talked about trust but verify. I had a situation, another advisor that I know was working with a client who was going through a real estate closing, and they had actually had the email, the client's email had been hacked. So the person sort of laid low for a while and just monitored the emails and knew that this person was buying a house, knew actually when the closing was, got on super early, emailed the advisor, said, okay, great, we're ready to go for the closing. Here's the wire information. And it came in early, and the advisor was ready to put the information in because they knew that the transaction was happening that day. Something just didn't quite feel right. So sure enough, they called around to the bank and the client, and it turned out it was a complete spoof email, but the quality of it was very good. If you remember a few years ago, you used to get those spoof emails, and they'd have like a logo that was a little shaky, or maybe some of the verbiage on it or the closing just didn't quite feel right. But now with AI, it's very easy for somebody who's not a native English speaker to put together an email that looks very much like they are a native English speaker. So that goes to the point of trust but verify, especially on any kind of wires or money movement. We're not trying to scare you here. We're just trying to tell you some of the stuff that's out there. Jessica, Dan, what kind of horror stories do you have?
Boy, we've had a few. We've had some clients that we found out that they were using, like I said, college email accounts, because the college will say you have that for life, right? And of course, there's no contractual obligation. At any point, they could shut down that email account if they went out of business, or if they decided to go from Google to Microsoft, as an example, that they may not migrate that over. And we had a few clients that were actually running their entire business out of their email accounts, sharing stuff out with their staff and things of that nature. And once we found out that, we immediately had them stand up an actual business account. We worked with them. We migrated all the data over securely. Now it's being backed up. We can back things up to a third-party utility in case there's an issue with Google or Microsoft and things that, because things do happen. We avoided their account. We also had a couple other groups that had an event where the CFO received an email. They were told that I forgot exactly, it was their insurance or some type of policy was going to be increased, and they wanted them to pay the entire balance out. It was like $100,000 investment. They were going from $60,000 to $100,000. So then they wanted them to wire the money. So what the CFO did is they actually met with the CEO and the rest of the staff. They actually had a face-to-face conversation and decided that this made sense and move forward. They made the transaction, only found out that they were swindled out of the money. Now, to your point, Brian, the first thing you want to do is schedule an actual phone call, do an outreach, do a video conferencing, things of that nature, just to validate that the people you're sending stuff to are actually the folks that you're speaking to. Because if your vendor is saying they're going to increase a policy, I probably want to have a conversation with them, make sure that they ask you who you are, pull up your policy information. You can kind of validate that. Sometimes I think we have a tendency to depend on technology too much and rush through things rather than remembering that you have that human element. And when you have that human element, 9 times out of 10, you're going to come out on top.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and you got to even be careful with that, with some of the voice copying and the video copying and all that stuff is getting a little bit stronger. But yeah, hopefully if it's a known connection, known client, that kind of stuff, hopefully there's a way to verify that. What sort of tips do you have for, and maybe it's on one of the slides here, you can let me know, but for people who are working remotely, either part of the time or even working, whether it's working from home or maybe offsite at a library, coffee shop, that kind of stuff. What are some of your best practices for that?
Well, you're going to think I'm over the top, but again, I come from a healthcare background, also a security background, started in the military in the mid 80s. And even in my own house, when I leave my desk, the cat could walk on my keyboard. I have access to I do control alternately, and I lock my computer and I walk away. Go to the restroom, I eat something. Because anything can happen. The grandkids can be over here. I come back, I use my thumb and I unlock it. So when you follow that practice in your own home and in your business, you're going to follow that type of practice also in a coffee shop. Fortunately for us and our clients, all of our laptops and computers, the entire hard drive is actually encrypted and managed by us. So if someone were to leave their device somewhere by accident, that device could be fully and remote and wiped. So I always make sure that if I'm going to go to a coffee shop, either use a VPN type of connection to have it secure. 2, I make sure that I'm facing outward and people can't see over my shoulder. So I make sure my back is to a wall, things of that nature. Unfortunately, we live in that type of world, and data is the foundation of your business. And even like when I was traveling, I don't leave my laptop in the car. If I go in for a meal, I bring that laptop in with me, because if that gets stolen, that's my entire life. That's my entire business. Fortunately, everything's backed up to the cloud. I can get a new device, but that added inconvenience is not a smart move. Jess, I don't know if I've missed anything that you may want to add to.
The only other thing is we use VPNs remotely. So like if we're working with a customer and they have the VPN, we make sure that we're connected to their VPN. It's just another layer of security.
Correct.
Yeah, those are good points. It's it's scary that we live in that world, but having somebody look over your shoulder and that type of stuff. So to be up against a wall, I guess I never really thought about that. Hopefully I do that naturally anyway. I don't do a ton of work while I'm out, but I know, Dan, you probably want to bring your devices in so you can take a picture of your lunch and post it to Instagram, probably, right?
Well, I was ex-military, so I always think of being defensive and offensive and just making sure things are kind of secure. So again, everything I ask my clients to do is something I do myself, because even if I'm in my own house, just because if you get accustomed to doing that discipline, it becomes secondary, and you think about security first rather than just reacting to to your point, you want the convenience of just being able to log into something. As soon as your bank account's hacked and you can't do banking or you can't use your credit card, that's a major, major inconvenience. So protecting that stuff should be your top priority.
Yeah. How about a question I got on data security regarding some of the large language models and the chat GPT and some of those. So I have some clients who are uploading not super confidential stuff. They're not doing, maybe data bursts and socials and that kind of stuff, but general business information. Any feedback on that, on how secure that is, or yes or no, or any other special steps that they should be taking?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, if you're connected, your data is going to be out there. And the third party is going to be breached. I mean, you want to monitor that type of stuff. But I would not put, let's say, intellectual property or something that's unique to your business on Chat GPT. But like, for instance, we'll put in articles for blogs that we want to send out about security, as an example, things of that nature. It's very good taking something you wrote and kind of clean it up a bit. But as far as, I would not put patient information, I won't put Social Security, and I won't put anything that's intellectual property on that, because now that becomes common knowledge for other people to kind of tap into. So again, if it's just a basic document that you want to refresh, there's nothing confidential. I personally say go for it. I work with some clients that just do not believe that at the board of directors level, because I think they're not comfortable with it yet. So it like anything else, it does take time, and then you also have to trust, if you say it's okay, will all your employees follow that pattern? Because once you give the green light, who knows what happens, right? You're kind of giving it away.
What are some of the biggest concerns you're hearing from, whether it's hospitals or doctors' offices or even another industry altogether? What's their biggest concern?
Well, it's viruses, ransomware. Your biggest thing is to protect against ransomware is make sure you have solid backup, and those backups should be encrypted, right? So no one can tap into that. It should be offsite someplace else where no one can kind of access. That's a big thing. And business email compromise, or BEC, is probably the number one thing. So making sure that you have phishing training for your staff. We do very specific training for our clients, especially around the holidays, when it's more likely you're going to get a virus or hacked into, or get an email you're going to click on. And one of my partners, Chris, will do that, where he'll actually create a actual email that comes from the owner of the business saying, hey, guess what? Happy holidays, if you have a bonus, click on this link and provide your financial information. Now, the bell should go on, because one, we're going to have some things that are misspelled in there. Two, your owner's not going to ask you for your financial information because you're on the payroll, so they would already have that information. But it's everyone's excited. Two, they're excited about the holidays. And three, when there's money involved, it's natural for people to want to jump at that and see, let me see what I can get from that. So we try to train people through those type of patterns. Then we report back to the management staff. And ironically, the ones that get attacked the most are physicians and business owners, because they're the C-level folks, right? And they're in a rush, they're going to click on something. So that's where the bad guys really go after. Usually the staff people are pretty rock solid, as far as following protocols. If you have policy procedures and you do training, because they're afraid they're going to lose their job, right? So they're going to kind of fall in line. But yeah, it's a tough world out there.
Yeah, it definitely is. And you're right about the holidays. Holidays and seniors are two biggest, sort of scam targets. I know I was saying before, I almost clicked on something around the holidays because it was December 22nd, 23rd, and looked like it was from the Postal Service. A text came in and said, your package has been delayed. We need to schedule a delivery. And you're obviously waiting for a million things probably. And then as soon as I clicked it, I was like, oh, I shouldn't have done that. I know, because you can see it like trying to go to different websites and redirects. And I knew right away that was not good. But yeah. And then the other thing with seniors, it's amazing how many times a week somebody will just send me something. An older client will be like, I got this in the mail. What is this? Is this real? Is this, whatever. And a lot of times I can just, kind of go online and look for similar documents, and I can see that, oh yeah, that's a phishing scam, that they're looking for this, or, sometimes they're looking for very small bits of data, but they're, putting together a puzzle of other stuff that they may have. They're asking you to verify, something. So that's you got to be careful with that stuff too. And certainly
Right.
anything that comes through email. What else on the slides? I think we handled all the questions that came in ahead of time. Is there anything else on the slide that you think you want to cover? We did some backup. We did.
Like I said, I think I know we kind of fast forwarded some stuff, but I mean, security, you need to figure out. I think one of the things I try to have people look at is understand what your costs are. Basically, meaning if you were not unable to do business, what's that cost you each day, right? So that helps you define whether you should have a cyber policy. Should you have more insurance? Should you have an IT partner, right? Can I afford that? If your day is going to cost you a ton of money, you may want to consider having a partner that provides that 24/7 support. So all of our clients have 7x24 support monitoring. We have multiple layers of security. It's part of what they call a national or a NOC, Network Operations Center. And literally this afternoon, we were getting pinged by them because we were clicking on some stuff on a server for one of our clients and it was a different pattern. So they immediately jumped at that, started raising an alarm and reaching out to us. Again, that happens 24/7. So we feel very comfortable with the technologies that we put in front of our clients, anything from healthcare, oncology, hospitals, down to soloists and to all these other industries. We use it in our own business as well. And we've seen this technology. We've seen how it can protect you. So I think it's important that if you're uncertain about what your status is, it doesn't hurt to have a conversation. You're more than welcome to email me. I'll have my email out there. We do business with Brian as well. He can get you my contact information. It costs nothing for us to have a conversation. If you say, "Hey, I have a small business. What do you think it would cost me to have that type of support?" We're happy to kind of give you a proposal. We're happy to come and meet you. We always like to do that handshake. You're going to find out. My son-in-law owns a real estate company, and he started to build a team, and he thought he could do it himself. And now he sits there and goes, "Thank God I have you guys, because when I need something, I just pick up the phone, I send an email, and someone's logged into our system. I don't have to deal with that type of stuff." So we do work with small clients. We find ways to make it cost-effective for you. And even again, if you just want to have a consultative, you want to send out an email, you want to get an idea of what that looks like, we're happy to kind of do that for folks.
Yeah, all really good points. I think people, a lot of times small business owners, especially now, they're looking to kind of see where they can cut fees and kind of, do things themselves. But once you get into this world, I mean, it's, trying to figure out something yourself. Everything looks like, well, I can figure that out in 10 minutes. And you go down that rabbit hole and you wasted a whole day on it. And when there are professionals like you who can just go in and fix this problem so that, we can get back to running our business and do what we're supposed to be doing. It really is kind of a lifesaver.
And I think I think the other important part, is that we're not waiting for calls to come in. We monitor people's networks. We actually text them or email them and advise them that there's a problem. If the telecom line's down, if we have to put in a call to Comcast or Cox. And we do meet with our clients, some clients on a weekly basis. So we're not someone you're paying and we're away. We're constantly involved in not just your IT, but also your business. We run a business as well. So anything we can help people with, from cyber insurance, reviewing policies, having questions, wanting to find a wonderful 401k guy like yourself. We make referrals as well. So we're business owners. We're happy to help folks out in any way we can, not just from an IT perspective, but from a business perspective as well.
Right. And you guys are in Connecticut, but you have clients all over the East Coast, as you mentioned earlier. So,
correct.
All right. So we'll probably put this out in kind of an audio version too, but our last slide has your email address. So if you want to run through that and your other contact information.
Yep. You can reach out to me at dconsolid@ithelppartners.com. My cell phone is 860-805-8688. And again, Brian has all my contact information. You know how to reach him. He can reach out to us. Happy to have a conversation with anyone about anything we can kind of help you out with.
Right. And before I went live, I was complimenting them on their LinkedIn presence. So be sure to follow them on LinkedIn and the other platforms, as Jessica's putting out some pretty good stuff on a daily basis there. So again, I'm Brian Williams from North Shire Consulting, investment advisory firm in Connecticut, working with small businesses and families. So we'll put this out. Thanks anybody who watched live. We'll also put out the recording on YouTube and LinkedIn and some other channels. You might see some clips floating out there as we slice it up as well. And if you have any technology or finance questions, you can get back to us. Thanks, Dan. Thanks, Jessica.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.